Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area on this Sunday, beginning of the week. Good to be with you guys this evening. I am Mr. Bennett. I'm joined by my partner, as always, Grooming and Reviews 101, aka the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panagiotis Galaboyevna.
Tem
Yes,
guys where Malaka is Gala.
yeah, and Mikala too.
Wait, we're gonna work on you a little bit. We're gonna work on
it. Every week you should drop me some new words to. Don't send me the slang, the dirty words though. I know you're full of those, but don't send me. Yeah. Now I think I'm gonna ask you this early on. Is the Greek language is this as full of colorful profane words as in the English? We just make up new stuff here, it seems like. But is Greek as colorful with that, or is it how would you compare the two the languages?
So the best way I can explain it, we have a lot of expressions.
Mhm.
Best way I can put it. So Malaka, for example, the most famous word in the Greek dictionary for a reason.
Right.
Malaka, it can be a different. It depends how you use it. That is slang and the real word. Malaka stands for, jerk off, pretty much.
Okay. Right.
Okay. But you can be a Malaka, like my boy. Yo, Malaka, what's going on today? I'm good, Malaka. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's slang. You call your friend Malaka, is hell of it. You might curse somebody. Yo, Malaka, what the hell? You just cut me off. What the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Or you're on mute. You're mute. Mute.
So I'm saying, like, how would you say that? Like, what is there an equivalent for the F word, for example? Is there?
Oh yeah. I think.
Do you guys just say it? Is it easy? Because everything is blended, right? You got Spanglish. I'm sure you got Greek-ish or whatever it is. I mean, everybody blends all these terms together, and it seems like the F word now is almost like it's universal. Like every language, you can hear the F word in regardless of.
So the F bomb is dropped in Greece too. But I think it's hilarious when you hear Greek people trying to curse in English.
Oh, it sounds. What's funny? Like I said, when these other ethnicities, when they say it, it is like it's funny. You just laugh. Yeah. Like it, even if they meant it in the worst of ways towards you, you just laugh because of the way it sounds coming out of their mouth. It's just funny to me.
Yeah. The way, like, my best friend George in Greece. I love the guy Dad. Shout out to him if he's watching this. The way he curses sometimes, I'm
it's
looking
funny.
at him like, dude, do you understand what the hell you're saying? He goes, yeah. I'm like, you just said that? Yeah. Like, you have no idea. But again, I'm also know the slang, everything about it. Like, everything we talk, like, even at work, is slang this, slang that. And, like, even at church today, I was talking to a fellow Christian, and then we're just talking slang all of a sudden. During coffee hour. I'm like, nothing bad. We're not like cursing or anything like that. I was in church, but it was like, it made me think like slang is in everything now these days.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but like the F bomb might be one of the greatest words, because again, and also its application. Like I remember watching a movie, and a guy was saying all the different ways you can use the F word. It's like it's so fluid in terms of its use. You can drop it here, drop it there.
I totally agree.
What's that?
I totally agree. You can drop the F bomb with everything, like two fucking peas in a pod, for example.
Yeah, it can come before a word. Like if you just
Yeah,
want to emphasize a word, you could just put an F in front of it, and it just kind of goes with it. You could be upset. You could be like you could be happy. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's not even it's not even tied to emotion anymore. You can be happy. You can be sad. You can be whatever, and it just it just like it just flows off your off the tongue. So it's like out of
You
English
know, it's
language has
funny.
250,000 words in it, and the F bomb probably is probably used about I would say the average American at this point, probably 25% of their language just probably has the F word in it.
That's
Just
it. I'll say more like
I'm trying to be
50%.
conservative here, but
Yeah. But you know what's funny? I was talking to it was another Christian, non-Orthodox, an American Christian,
mhm,
and he goes, you know, as much you're religious, Peter. He goes, you curse more than anybody I know. And like, I first I go to him, thank you. I was like proud of that because
mhm,
I'm like, I don't consider myself like a typical Greek. I consider myself a unique Greek.
mhm,
But you know, after I got home, I started thinking about like, you know, he's kind of right. Like as Christians, we don't know the filter anymore.
mhm,
Like I hear people even like as they walk out of church, they just receive communion. They just freaking did a confession. First thing they do, that motherfucker. I'm like, you're
mhm,
still you're literally right outside church. You just walk through the
mhm,
doors and you're
mhm.
already cursing.
Right.
I'm like, what's the point in confession? You got to restart. That's what confession is supposed to be: is a reboot or a restart.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Uh,
as soon as you get out the building, it's like
now,
you could almost start the stopwatch by
yeah,
the
I'm
time you
like, or even things you were thinking about, like, I'll be good. I'll be a good Christian. I promise I will not have any more unmarital sex, whatever, yada. Like, as you walk out, they see a nice, this girl, like, what was I saying? Never mind. I'm going after her now. That's my going after the next goal. So, like, you thought 2 seconds later, now you change your mind. Like, I think that's kind of like we've been hypocrites as Christians sometimes because we always say we're going to stop doing this, this, and this, and we never do it.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's a habit. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just like, look, I haven't cursed in 20 something years. Like at least not, I could probably count on one hand if I've uttered. In fact, one time I asked my kids,
Hmm.
it's like, do you, my oldest is 24. It's like, do you ever recall me cursing? I think they might have said maybe once or something like that. I just stopped. I went through my phase with it, when I was a teenager and into college and everything, and then I just stopped. I just stopped doing it. So, um, but it doesn't mean I don't think it, but I just don't utter it
You
because
don't verbalize
I
it.
don't want that kind of atmosphere out there. But again, it is addictive. It's like once you get into it, it's something that it's like smoking or anything else. It's hard. It's a hard thing to break once you start it. So I can totally agree with people having difficulty trying to tame the tongue. But it's interesting because I read when I read scriptures about, again, the power of the tongue, and words do matter a lot of times. So certainly I never wanted that to be a blocker in any kind of way. But I just find it interesting, though, when people like say universally, it doesn't matter. I've heard so many times the first for a foreign, like the first language that they learned was profanity. And so the F word is just something that they just are able to, like, to blend it into everything that they do. And so yeah, that's just one of those, that might be one of the grayest words because of this universal application that's out there. So I was just wondering, in Greece, if there was one word in Greek that you knew of that has the power, if you will,
Hmm.
of the F word. Can you think of one, or is it like, that might be like
Are
the,
you saying the equal of the F bomb from here,
not
but in a
only the
Greek version,
equal of the F bomb,
or as
but the but
powerful?
the but the usage, like in terms of, like I said, just the way it's used here. Like, is there one word in Greek that is
Malaka.
just, yeah,
Malaka. I'm serious. Malaka is the most word. You would probably hear anybody from a teenager. It's sad how young they started using that word, all the way to somebody who's in the 90s
mhm,
about to croak on their
mhm,
deathbed. Say Malaka. I don't know how many times they say Malaka in one sentence, and like
mhm,
it's you say the problem is used by, like, I know you said 20%. I'll say more 50%. I'll
mhm,
probably say equal as the F bomb in America is Malaka.
Mhm.
malaka this, malaka that, malaka, malaka, malaka. You hear that all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
only time you don't hear only people don't I not hear it say is priests. I'm like, and
Sure.
that's the only ones. And like, and I hear him sometimes say it too. And they look up and they're start, start praying like, "Forgive me, Father, I sinned." Yeah, because they're
Uh-huh.
human too, end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah.
like, I
But
use
yeah, but it's just like it's but like I said, the F word, it's used as a verb, a noun, an expletive, an interjection. It's like any usage. It just has you call people it. You if you bang your toe, you say it. You do so it's so okay. So we so I guess that's something we can find commonality in. Now again, in Nigerian or any other language that might be their Igbo language or Yoruba language or whatever. I don't know if there's an equivalent. Black Dave, if you want to drop a word in the back chat, that's where a profane word in your language has universal application. I'd be interested in, and anyone else in the chat, if you speak, if you have a mother tongue where you have a word that has universal application the way that the F word does in the English language that's used, throughout. I'd be interested in just out of curiosity. I'd be interested to know what that is. But again, once again, welcome to the show tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. Also, if you look at scrolling at the bottom, you see our cash
I
apps. What's that?
Hey guys, yeah,
Hey,
I don't think
yo,
I can write it out because for one to write out the curse words in my native language it'll be hard to pronounce it unless I pronounce it for you guys.
okay. Well, we're
Now
looking. Well, we're looking for that one. All right. So we're
the most
saying like I said,
the
the
most
F
infamous
word
ones or
was
F
that?
word, no. I thought that there's too many, but the most infamous one that made wave in the United States with the word akata.
Oh man,
And
that's a ethnic slur against my people, isn't it?
it is, but here's the problem. Too many people say it meant to be cotton picker.
Uh huh.
Um, Godfrey, one of the well-known African
Yeah, yeah,
comedians,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
also from
He's
Nigeria.
fun.
He
He's good.
believed that what it meant,
Right.
but the origin of the word Akata is a Yoruba language, not a Igbo
Mm.
language. He's Igbo,
Right.
not
Right.
Yoruba.
Right.
I took the time out for years trying to find the origin of that word and what it means. When I was living with my uncle, who was very wealthy, he was a multi-millionaire in Nigeria,
Hmm.
one of my aunt broke it down to me. She told me she know that word because she was with a kid. They did call a lot of American people that word Akata.
Hmm.
And she found out what it meant. Akata, based in Yoruba language, mean animal, referring to
Wow.
African American people, animal.
Hmm.
Now, trying to find the reason why behind that, that's a whole nother history journey on that
Right.
part as well.
Right.
So that's
But is there a word like I said
one of
equivalent to
the
the F
cursed
um
word
the F
that is
word that
infamous
is
front of
used in
people
just
or
everyday parlance in every day you throw it out, you use it
oh
when you're
this
happy, you throw it
this
when you're
one
sad, you throw it.
this
Yeah.
one no. When you want to cut somebody out, you're referring to their mother more than their father. And if I remember
Hmm.
correctly, it should say Baba Yai, and I forgot how to spell it. But knowing when we do the data expression, we normally do with our hand. You know how people do the
Right.
middle finger? You
Yeah.
spread out the whole five finger and you stretch out in front of
Oh
them in their
man.
face.
So
So that's
spreading
Baba Yai.
five fingers,
like like that.
Like
that's a
this. Yeah, something like it's like yeah,
wow.
but
We have something similar
American
in Greek actually too, like that. That
Wow.
American
this
people will not
stands
understand.
for this instead.
Yeah,
Is that right?
uh,
This stands for that.
yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
Wow. All
we've
right.
been doing. Let me put my top on. Let me put my top on the camera.
Sure.
So when they be keep doing this, a lot of time,
Hmm.
sometimes they joke about it, but most when they're angry, they'll say "Baba Yai," referring to the to the mother like "f your mother,"
Mm.
or they say my baba. I mean "f your father." Iya iya is mother. Baba is referring to father.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like those type of typical. At me, I'll try to understand what this mean, but yeah, but what it doesn't mean, but one day it's almost like saying F your mother or F your father, but it's something much more deeper than that.
Right.
So there's a lot of curse words. There's a lot of crazy curse words in my
Right.
language.
But let me all
I'm
right.
not.
So let me ask you though. So the F word. Actually, I'm starting to believe that the F word is probably amongst the most universal words in the world at this
It
point.
is, but we don't say F word. It's said in the native language until the F word will not become an F word, will be something else or entirely. So the
Hmm.
F word is universal. Yes, it is. It's just that its origin, I hate to say, it had to come from Africa because you don't say F you.
We
You
started
say something.
everything.
You say something else in particular, and it cut deep.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. When I say it cut deep, it cut deep. So
Right.
you watch a lot of African movie and see the type of code that's in the native language.
Mm.
It, it's I don't know. Somebody said on TikTok when Nigerian people want to curse you, it sound like poetry. I'm like,
Wow. Wow.
at first I was offended about it. Then I remember when I was in high school and junior high school, elementary school over there. Well, when they curse you, it sound like poetry. By the time you understand what they're saying,
Yeah, you're gone. Yeah.
you were like you're taken aback. You're like, oh my god, like
Mm.
what you trying to say? But that's how he normally does.
Right.
So
But even in your language, though, in your Yoruba language, you don't say literally the F word. Even because you know how like language now, especially in America, right? Everybody
mhm,
blends everything. So you'll say some English words, you'll mix it with some Yoruba or whatever it is. So I'm just
the,
saying the F word isn't part of
the F word
your
right now in the
a
younger
common
generation,
person's vernacular now, especially
it
when they're
will be
excited or
it
upset.
will be it will be in the younger generation, yes,
Okay.
but be more of a remix. That's the problem. They
Winky,
will
winky,
Remix.
winky, winky.
not in that kind of way, but when I say it'll be a remix, it will not sound. I don't know. I don't know why African may have the type of curse. There's some curse where I don't want to say because it kind of like
Mhm.
it go
Right.
too far deep.
Right.
It like someone
Us
want to
going
put
too dark deep? No.
no. It's like they putting a curse on your family. Kind of those type of curse
Yeah,
words.
yeah. We're not talking. Yeah, I'm
Nah, we're
talking
going,
about.
that's
Yeah,
going the
I'm.
opposite
Yeah,
direction.
yeah. And this is just like a totally like an off top, just kind of get get the show started. We're just talking about just an everyday parlance. We're not talking about
No, that what
cursing
I'm saying.
generations and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like I said, but the F, I just find the F word in and of itself fascinating
It's no,
in
So,
terms of, like I said,
but
the
the
number of
thing about
ways it's used and how it's used throughout the world. It's just like I said, a lot of immigrants they say the first words that they learn in English is the
the
F word or
F.
FU
I
or something
know.
like that. That's like
so
I
the
you
hate
go,
to say that.
Paul, you're gonna laugh at this. So I just looked up the universal words around. F is in there. So here they are: taxi, pizza, satisfy, smartphone, huh? Okay, ninja. Knew that was
hmm
coming, and karaoke. Those are
hmm
the top universal words all over
universal
the world
words.
in English. And I'm
And you said
funny.
the F
I
word, yeah,
think
and the
it's
F word is in there.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Ninja is one of the top ones in there.
yeah, yeah. I can see
But the
that. And
but the
okay,
F
like
but the
I
F
knew
word.
okay would be up there as far
Yeah.
as
But the thing
yeah,
is,
everybody
the
knows what that
F
is.
word. Every immigrant learned that word quickly than anything else.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? You said that when I when I first moved to Greece, my father bet money with my mother. He goes, the first word he's learning in Greek is gonna be malaka. He goes like, no, no, no. First word I learned was malaka.
The first word
Same
Yes,
same
before
thing. Same thing.
before mother and father, you learned. Man,
malaka
The
English.
same
that
thing in my
explains a lot.
country. It's
That
same thing in
explains
my
a
country.
lot right
The
now.
first word anyone come to Nigeria will learn about yeah. And everyone talks for what do we mean by that? When you see people fighting or culture, you see that that's the first thing you'll pick up.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
But what's amazing, every immigrant, doesn't matter where you from this planet, when you get to the US, the F word is the quickest word they'll learn.
Yeah,
It's true. It's facts.
it's amazing, and plus we forget it's associated with sex. I mean, it's just like I said, it just covers so many areas. It's just
So
amazing, and now David, you're telling me that it made it started in Africa. The root of the word start. I thought I read it was like it started in Europe or something, but if you're saying it started in
No,
Africa, then that's also got
because
me. I may
because
have to do
when
some.
it comes to cursing,
Yeah.
African people are the worst. I don't say African American people are the worst. African people are the worst when it comes to cursing because they think of all type of thing out of their mind. Nigerian people make it sound like poetry. People from Ghana make it sound like something else. people from South Africa sound like a sign of war. No matter what it is, the way we go about cursing people, it hits so deep that by the time you
Mm,
understand the meaning, you start to
yeah,
realize, hold up,
yeah,
are you saying what I think you're saying? Yeah.
yeah. Like I
Then
said, not like I said. That's why I was saying earlier. I wasn't even trying to go there because, like I said, the F word. You could be happy, right? You could be your best friend. You could say like, "I effing love you." Right? Like it doesn't even have to be bad. People use it if they really express something towards you. They'll use the F word in affection towards you as well as cursing you out or whatever. Like I said, it's I've never.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as we're talking about history, back in the day, with ancient times like ancient Greece, or Europe, Africa, whatever, cursing wasn't a curse. Saying fuck wasn't a curse. It was just a normal language you're speaking to.
Mhm.
So over the years, that have changed when started going from medieval times or dark ages into the whole
The modern,
dress,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, the dressing up, with the grooming, the I keep forgetting what generation that is, decade it is. But then it turned into the modern decade, and people go, "Oh no, you cannot use that anymore as a
Mhm.
everyday talk. It's bad."
Mhm.
That's what happened over the generations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
now
that's yeah.
we- I'll tell you the person who may know that all the curse word in my language it would be manipustige. Manipustige. He from my tribe.
It wouldn't be
He
Ekene. I thought Ekene would be
no
okay.
Ekene is evil.
Oh, you talk about from the Yoruba
Ekene
perspective. Okay.
Ekene know a lot of Igbo curse word. He's full traditional, so don't mess with him. Do not mess with him. If you watch
Oh,
African movie, the people who more dramatic when it comes to cursing people are Yoruba people and Igbo people.
wow.
When they get to that, when they get to that level of they want to curse you, you can see the expression, you can see the body language. It's like, oh, you want to go down that route? Okay, I got
Yeah,
something for you. Yeah.
I hear you. I hear
And they
you.
go in. I'm not gonna lie. I think Nigerian people, we're brutal when it comes to cursing people. I think that's what it is.
Mhm.
Now that I think about it more, I've heard all type of medieval, modern, ancient, forbidden curses
Mhm.
done in my country that should never be done in the first place.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
by the time I learn all the meaning behind it, I'll be like, wait. That- And I'll be like, oh, you
Yeah.
hear what I said? They
Yeah.
go modern,
Mhm.
ancient,
Mhm.
medieval, forbidden.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're touching every ground of the timeline of their language to curse you.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you, man.
So
That's crazy.
it don't even sound right. It don't like they compete with the Greeks. God forbid the Greeks come out, oh, Zeus would do this to your family. Oh, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it
It's
go
funny. You
far
look
there.
in the
Oh,
yeah, dude. Look in the comment. Pull that comment up for me for a second. It says right there. Everything. He used to work in Greeks, and the first word and the only word he used to hear was malaka. Thank
right.
you.
Right.
That's my point exactly.
Right. Now, speaking of now, he just introduced something else. And again, we're going to get on with the show. This is not the theme of the show tonight. All right, we're supposed to be
This is
talking about
I
history. So
know
this
it's history, but
a pregame.
yeah, this is the pregame before we get into it. But what I also noticed, and P, you can probably back me up on this.
Go for it.
Jesus Christ is gaining universal application. Even though, like, I've never heard like in another god, like, do they say in Greece, like, you have all these Greek gods from back in the day or whatever?
The answer is
Do
no. I know where you're
people
going with this.
use, great whatever, great Zeus
So okay,
or
I want to touch.
or,
I
oh,
actually
or
really want to
whatever?
touch base on this really much. It's really
Yeah.
important to me this because my father grew up. I grew up him cursing, Holy Mary, Jesus Christ, and his ex. That's our biggest sin you can do in any Greek household.
Mm.
Like I wouldn't even say on air. That's how bad it is.
Right, right, right.
Like
But I'm
if
saying,
Father
but
Cosino was
similar, yeah,
listening to this, he
yeah.
would probably strangle me through the screen. That's how bad it is.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. But similar to the
So
F word, like a lot of immigrants, they
mhm.
will use that word, in
yeah,
addition to the F
it,
word,
in a way,
even though
at
they're not
first,
even Christian. They're not
and
even,
that is
they could
true.
be Muslim.
It's
But I've never
scary,
heard a Muslim person say anything about Allah in a profane way or anything else. But
and that, I hate to say
JC
this,
seems to
he's right.
be, you know,
I hate to
something
say he's
everybody
right
uses.
because I did the same thing Mr. Bennett did. Every other person who are not a Christian from a different religious background, out of anger or hurt or any kind of thing, they don't never mention their God in
Nope.
profanity. Jesus.
Nope.
And when I hear that from their lip, the first came to my mind was like, hold up.
Yeah.
But you into Buddha. Why you say
Oh,
out of
a lot
anger?
of these guys are
Oh, you're a
atheists. They don't.
Muslim.
They don't even
No,
believe in a God at all.
that's even worse.
Yeah.
That's even
It's like,
worse.
wait a minute. I thought you didn't believe in Jesus. So why are you saying his name that way?
When I atheist curse say, Jesus, I'm gonna but
That's
first thing
funny
came
to
to my
me.
mind, but I thought God never existed. How
Yeah.
that
I'm
came out
like,
of your
so.
mouth? I'm telling you, but in Africa, um, Jesus Christ became the top religious name to use in cursing, followed by all the other traditional God they maybe if you're a traditionalist.
hmm
Yeah. Hold on a second. Well, I gotta check my phone all the time with BMU. I think that's the case. I
I just
don't
want to ask
know.
a question, BMU. Is the bike out of the ER yet? I heard it kind of got squished over the weekend.
I think that's the case, but other than that, he want me to come
But
down. But
seriously, no, those curses, some curses are really, horrible. You're not supposed to say.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
does it, unfortunately.
But JC, like I said, anybody, you could be religious, a-religious, whatever it is, it's used across the board. So the F word, JC, if it's not in that list that you came on before, it's probably rising up the ranks, because I think it's the funniest thing in the world when an atheist uses it. But but, but it's part of
It
the
makes
it's
me
just part of the
laugh in a
vernacular.
way, and it's kind of sad. Us Christians know to use Jesus Christ and God in profane ways so many times.
Mhm.
Like I hear, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. Like, and like, you're using God in vain. But then we
Right.
go pray to him. He's probably looking down and tapping his foot, like, dude, you just cursed me out. Now you want my help? What the hell is this shit?
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Well, even in like I said, in the Jewish language, if you look at like the Torah, they don't even spell his name. Like if you see it's like the G, and then the O is missing, and then the D. They don't even mention his name, just so that they don't take his name in vain. So they don't even write it out like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
but
like you said, Muslims don't even use Allah in vain. I believe. Correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong.
yeah, yeah. That's just a we can revisit this on another episode. Talk
Yeah.
about language and gods. I think we have a show. Don't we have a show upcoming? I think on I thought on God's religion or something like that. Maybe that's
Let
something
me
we
check
can.
my email because
Yeah,
I
we can we
emailed the
can
list to
visit that
BMU
another
because
time.
to be honest,
But
I can't remember every little thing off my
yeah,
head.
yeah. But just want to
So
give a shout out to the chat.
yeah,
So again, we
go for it.
have Hunting Wisdom. Thank you for again coming in tonight. Appreciate you being here. Alexis from Texas. Thank you for dropping in and seeing us tonight. Hopefully you'll enjoy the conversation. And congrats on your show last night. I was able to definitely peep some of it last night. So keep doing your thing. Again, Alexis, she has her show on Saturday nights on the BMU Network. And again, the BMU Network gives you content essentially every day of the week. And so we're definitely looking to grow this platform. So definitely you see our Cash App scrolling at the bottom. We'd appreciate any support you give us there, but also consider supporting the network. Consider becoming a member. Not only subscribe to the network, but become a member of the BMU network. BMU. He's really working hard to put out quality content from all different types of areas. There's something for everybody, certainly in this space. And so if you find this channel to be beneficial to you, then consider becoming a member. A paid member, and support this network monthly. But at the very least, again, drop us a Cash App, for the BND network. We'd appreciate all of it. But
So, Paul,
yeah,
I'm sorry to cut you off. So next week we're talking about Greek God versus real God. So that's
okay,
what you're probably thinking of.
okay, yeah,
I don't think it costs Father Costa will be able to make it because now
that's
we're getting
fine.
home stretch with the
I got you.
Greek Easter and stuff like that.
That's
So
right. Yeah, your Easter's
yeah,
coming up, so certainly I would love to broach that with you as well.
yeah, we're going to
On
talk
that,
on
on that.
actually on Greek Easter. It falls on our show, so we're
There
going to
you
actually
go.
have
So
that
we can have a
conversation
concern.
Monday.
We can talk about that a little bit more, because I
Yeah,
don't think a lot of people knew that.
yeah.
That the Orthodox celebrates on a different day, and I think Christmas is also on a different
No,
day, isn't it?
Christmas is the same day. Same day.
Okay, I want to say that the Coptic church, one of the church, either the Coptic or the Egyptian or whatever, I think
So
their Christmas is January 6th. not
So what
December
you're
25th.
probably thinking also is we have two type of there's several type of Orthodox, but one of them also are known as the old calendar Orthodox,
Hmm.
meaning before the leap year and all that stuff
Right before the
changed.
Gregorian calendar, they use
Yeah, they
they
follow
use a
the
different
old
calendar.
calendar. So
Indeed.
that's someone for a lot of Romans Orthodox follow the old calendar, believe it or not.
Right, right, right. So that's something worth considering as well. Brother Anton, again, thank you. That's my brother from New Jersey. Again, thank you for stopping in here tonight as well, and looking forward to this conversation. But tonight we're dealing with arguably, at least in my view, and Peter, I'll let you certainly have the floor on this in terms of
Of course.
why did you decide to pick this topic. But we're talking about history tonight, and this is especially in recent years. This has become a major gray area, and I think it's going to be more challenging for people going forward in terms of even just the word history is becoming more so his story. And so sometimes who's writing it, what perspective that we're taking on, more so looking at the facts of history. People, certainly historians, always are debating over, you can look at the data and you can agree to the data, but the conclusions that you oftentimes come to, just like in science, not always coming to the same conclusion. But I want Pete, since you brought the topic up for tonight's discussion, what was your motivation in bringing this up as a topic for discussion to talk about?
It's very simple actually. I'm a huge fan of history.
Hmm.
Me and you have talked about history several times on
Yeah.
our private side.
Right.
I grew up in it. Simple
Hmm.
as that. You can, if you're Greek and you say you didn't grow up on it, you're not a real Greek in my eyes. Simple as that.
Mm. Mm.
Because I can literally look outside my yard or my backyard or any part of my house in Greece and I go, oh, there's the Acropolis. There's this, there's that.
Hmm.
Or walking
Hmm.
down Athens, like, oh, there's some ancient artifacts. They're digging a new
Hmm.
house. They're doing construction. And
Right.
they're digging because it's hard to find new property in Athens, obviously. So they're
Hmm.
digging an old house. All of a sudden, they want to go deeper for bigger foundation or whatever the case is. Oh my
Hmm.
God. Then now they found another house that was like over a couple million years under there, like we never knew about.
All right.
So
Hang on. Before I go any further, I have to address. I have to make a correction. Hunting Wisdom, I apologize. She says I've returned. She's subscribed, and I'm a lady. So I apologize for addressing you as a man. Certainly that is my mistake. But again, we're so thankful that you have returned and subscribed, and appreciate you being here tonight. I will never make that mistake again. But I just wanted to acknowledge that before we went before we went any further in the show. But thank you for being with us tonight, Hunting Wisdom. And I just got some more wisdom from your correction tonight. So thank you very much. You can go ahead, Pete.
So it doesn't matter where in Greece you go, you see history in it. Even in the church, believe it or not, some churches have been around for I don't know how long. I remember going on field trips with the church on a monasteries, for example. Some of those monasteries are pre World War One. That's how long
Hmm.
they've been on there,
Right.
and it just we have such a golden, rich history of Greece.
Hmm.
During World War II, unfortunately, we lost a lot of our artifacts. They're
Hmm.
spread all over the world. We've been fighting in court to get them back, but most likely, I'll be realistically, I don't think we're going to ever get it back. But
Right.
hopefully, we will one day. Even in
Right.
my own my channel on Green Reviews on Wednesday, Spartan, I have the Greek in the background. If you
Hmm.
remember, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I use as one of my backgrounds because it's a rich part of my life. Like not because I'm Greek, is because I grew up in it.
Yeah.
So what first thing one of the few things you learn in Greece school is your Greek language, obviously, English, English, Greek, obviously, how to write and spell, math, English, obviously I'm talking about English language, and history. But
Hmm.
it's not like history here. You learn history of Greece. That's
Yeah.
all you learn
Right.
from Alexander the Great, from King Leonidas to you name it.
Hmm.
There's so much. Like a lot of stuff we see has a lot. Like for example, Trojan, one of the best Greek movies in my personal opinion.
Hmm.
It's based on a true story. They
Right.
changed some things for Hollywood, like when Achilles got hit. He in the history, he only gets hit with one arrow in Achilles' heel and kills him, not several
Right.
arrows. But the whole story, going after, um, oh man, Eleni, of Troy at the time, it was a true story. That was all happened. You could not conquer those walls. That's why the trolls and horse came in to pick. That's all facts.
Hmm.
So another one, 300. The story is facts. It's really thing. 300 really did happen. But I can't remember who did the 300s. I have to look it up really fast.
Hmm.
Who the person who did the 300s was a big, big, big fan of the 300 story, and so that's why he actually did his own twist to it. The
Hmm.
story's true. So 300 Spartans did march to stop the Persian Empire coming in.
Hmm.
Now, seeing this big statue guy who's a Persian king,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
true. The guy with a humpback, like he was informed. I think that's a little far fetched. I don't know if that's true or false because
Right. Right.
again, we don't have
Yeah,
pictures
we
back
don't
in
have to.
that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's so many factors also you have to keep in mind. But because it was very based on true story, Leonidas was a real king.
Hmm.
Leonidas died there. 300 Spartans did stop the Persian Empire.
Right.
At least slow it down.
Right.
And in ours we have the 300 Rising, and that's all made up, obviously.
Hmm.
But think about how much you see in history that is Greek around you.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the. I mean, you talk about the Greeks, the Romans, the Phoenicians. I mean, there's a lot of ways. Like, I think of like medicine, right? Philosophy. Just the in the arts. Certainly, the Greeks have certainly had one of the most pronounced influences on world history, on societies, even democracy.
Correct.
A lot of these modern institutions. You can certainly trace their origins to the Greeks. Now, again, there's always the debate, especially amongst African Americans or those of African descents. Some of this stuff is claimed it came out. No, it didn't come out of Egypt. It didn't come out of Greece. It came out of Egypt. Or there was a lot of ancient civilization in Africa, in Egypt. And a lot of those dynasties, since there were such interactions at the times, how much of that was taken. That's always one of the challenges of history. Also, like how far do you want to go back, and
So
how how you're influenced by it.
I'm gonna be a little biased here, and I can't help it, and I do
And
apologize.
that's another point I was going to raise too. But go ahead.
So they found, what was it, 8 years ago, 4 years ago? I can't remember how many. It was like nothing more than 10 years ago. Let's say 10-year argument's sake. They found an artifact in Greece. They dated it so back. It was before the Egypt Empire, before the Roman Empire, before the Japanese Empire, or Chinese Empire, even for the Greek Empire. But they found it in Greece. They determined it is a Greek artifact. So they have determined at this point, again, I might be a little biased, my information on my 100% positive, so
Sure.
take this with a grain of salt, obviously.
Sure.
They're saying right now, Greek Empire is probably the oldest in history at the moment. Might be wrong, but
now, so what is the general sense? I was just doing a quick look up before the show.
Yeah.
They said the Greek Empire, I think it started around 11 or 1200 BC, and then it went up to about 800. But then by the 800s, then you had the Romans came in, and the Roman Empire sort of overtook the Greek Empire and became so. So we also have to measure in terms, when you say empire, meaning the dominant world power at that particular time versus existing, because you can still exist. You might be still second fiddle to whomever, the Romans, whoever was in charge at the time, but you're still pretty big. I mean, you're not just going to go and invade Greece just off the rip, even though there's a power that's bigger than you. So sometimes getting the dates right in terms of how do you judge or how do you measure I mean, America is pretty easy, right? I mean, relatively speaking, when you talk about the U.S., we're arguably one of the younger democracies. I mean, we don't even matter.
Yeah.
Like 270, 200 something years that we've been in, 250 years we've been in existence. That's little compared to like the dynasties, the Ming dynasty, the Greeks, the Romans, or whatever. So we're we don't have the footprint that a lot of these ancient cultures and civilizations do. So from our perspective, it might be a little bit easier for us to kind of go back and know, certain certain things. And even then, it's not without controversy because it's a pluralistic society, because it's, we've had a lot of cultural change, especially in the last 70 years, how the society has changed in so many ways, and people are starting to re-examine history. And unfortunately, what's also happening here is people are trying to rewrite history here. So I mean, certainly as an African American, as an ADOS FBA member, there's a lot of concern with our people here, in that you see, especially in the South, a lot of these more conservative states, the states that were part of the Confederacy, how they're trying to rewrite history, take certain books out of the classrooms, rewriting, or kind of what they call, quote unquote, whitewashing history in terms of the legacy of slavery in the country and whatnot. It's almost, so again, the problem oftentimes with our history is that it's, people are still debating, as people are still fighting over a lot of issues. And now the argument is, well, we don't want to make little kids feel bad about slavery from 200 years ago, so we'll just stop talking about it, or we'll talk about it briefly, but you always want to put like a nice face on it. And just getting back to the point that you said earlier about the bias, unfortunately, history is oftentimes written with a lot of bias, especially because, again, you're a proud Greek, you're a proud whatever you're from. Everybody wants to have a put their best foot forward, right? The best image of themselves. Like America, we have this apple pie, Christian nation and all this kind of stuff that we like to, oftentimes portray ourselves to be. But again, we have some ugly parts of our history. And again, and that's the controversy right now, because certain people's like, oh, we shouldn't be talking about that. But it happened, and people were affected. If you talk to the Native American people here, they might have a much different view of American history than that even I would.
Actually, I want to touch base before we move on a little bit. So if you remember a couple of shows back before we started the area on the barbershop, me and Manuel got into it a little bit about Black history, and when the statue leak came down, and I argued that it shouldn't have came down, because I believe you remember where you came from. So that gives us, it's a dark history. Greek, Spanish, Roman, I don't care. Everybody has a dark history in their culture. And unfortunately, American history has that the slavery time. So I felt, and I still stick to my guns, and he argues, and that's fine. He has his opinion. I like him as a person, and it's something we're going to disagree. We're going to disagree to agree. The statue should stay up. The reason is it reminds us where we came from. Because if you take it down, you're kind of erasing the history. Why erase it? It reminds you where you came from every day.
Right. My only I guess I've had some pushback on that.
Okay.
Was the origin of the statues themselves. Most of those statues, most of those Confederate statues, they came up in the 1920s. So think about it. So you had the Confederacy that was there for decades earlier. The Civil War ended in 1865. And the problem with the old Confederates is that they're the ones that are driving the wedge between Black Americans and those of Caribbean descent. True. But the idea is that all those statues came up decades after the Civil War. So it wasn't that they were trying to remind you of history. They were trying to rewrite history, because, again, they lost. And so the idea of why now, if you want to do it, like I said, after the war, you want to have certain memorials to just certain generals, fine. But the fact that they came up, and keep in mind, this all came up in what that period of time in this country, the Jim Crow South. So it was almost like a reaction to the changes that were starting to happen in the country. And it was almost like a reassertion of the Confederacy, or the images, or the children of the Confederacy. So I don't think it was necessarily done in good faith. So that's why I don't mind the statues coming down, because I don't think they were ever put up in good faith. to begin with. So that would be my pushback. That yeah, if they go all the way back, but they're not. They're not even 100 years old. Those came early 20th century. Those statues came up, and that just was like almost like the South saying, yeah, we're still in a lot of, and you're kind of seeing it now. It's almost like they're kind of saying we're still the Confederacy. So again, when you talk about the rewriting of history, the book bannings that are taking place, the rights that are the civil rights, again, all those rights that were earned in the 1960s, voting rights. You look at these state legislatures with the supermajorities and whatnot. It's almost as if they're saying the South will rise again. And that was a statement that was oftentimes raised by a lot of those people. The South will rise again, meaning, yeah, we were defeated, but we're not beaten. And slowly but surely, it seems like they've been asserting themselves to get back to how things were. And now we even have, in fact, the number one movie in America right now is called Civil War. It's the number surpassed Godzilla as the number one movie in America. So I think for a lot of people are concerned that we might be in a situation coming up very soon. I'm not trying to turn this into a political thing, but
no.
I'm just pointing out though the complexity of history.
Can I say something as a foreigner?
Yeah.
For anyone
You're a foreigner, I know that.
I know, but for any immigrant who come in here to the country, we all learn one thing that's been common. The history that took place in the country have been rewritten too many times to the point whereby whoever that the monetary influential agenda trying to make sure that the true history is not being told. Because of every other civilization, America is like the ultimate contradiction. If you think about it, in every other my part of the world, the winner writes the story. It's not correct.
Yeah, I was going to raise that point too. That's a good point.
But for some parent reader within the U.S., that's not even the case to begin with. Even so, there's so many other facts of history that being prevented to be taught in classes. With something that I mentioned to you, Mr. Bennett, how some of our African history have been dug out, and we found out more about our history and our ancestors, plus our name of our nation, what it came about, what was before that.
Right.
So that's the thing about history. I would say is you have to trend lightly and look at both sides of the angle and trying to make some clarity to see what is really going on. Because I myself, I'm a big fan of history, but I don't like the contradiction or the hypocrisy. You really throwing out that it's a missing piece to the puzzle to get clear understanding. I think that's what we have in the United States as it is as a whole.
Right. But I think in a lot of ways, I think the nature of the United States, like I think for the most part now, again, Gloomy, you can certainly go back to, on your side as far as Greek history. I mean, yes, Greece has had many, correct me if I'm wrong, many different peoples were considered Greek. I think at some point you said there was maybe some black people who were Greek or considered part of Greek, part of the Spartans. But for the most part, Greek culture is relatively homogenous, relatively speaking. Just like with Chinese, like if you look at the Ming, those ancient Japanese cultures and whatnot, it's pretty homogeny. Has a lot to do with how you're able to keep, I think, the integrity. If you want to talk about history, in a sense, the integrity of your history. But when you have different peoples that are intermingling, like here, like some of us, again, America was, I mean, the Native Americans were here first, right? And then you had the Europeans who brought their slaves with them. So we've had this sort of this melting pot or whatever you want to call it. And there's been, unfortunately, there have been winners and losers to Black David's point. And a lot of times the winners oftentimes get a chance to write the stories. But you now have people who are trying to write from their perspective, their version of the story. And again, like I said earlier, history is becoming his story or her story. And the debate is who has the right perspective on the events, the things that happen. Like I said, a lot of us, we can agree on the events, but why things happen the way they did. What was the motivation behind certain things happening? Why wars were started, or what was behind certain initiatives? And let's face it, I mean, human history war got us here, basically. If you look at technology, if you look at all the advancements that we have in the world today, this podcast wouldn't be taking place right now if it wasn't for war, if it wasn't for satellites, the Cold War, getting to space first, and all those sort of things. War sped up technology in a lot of ways because we were looking for more efficient ways to delete one another. And so, those inventions, gunpowder, or what were some of the ancient Greek weapons, grooming, spears, bow and arrows.
I want to say bow
was
and
it
arrows.
what was that catapult? Wasn't that a Greek invention? The catapult, or who made it?
Greek fire was definitely one of them too.
Yeah. So again, all those modern advancements oftentimes came out of a hostile incentive or motivation for us to get here. And so, so everybody's competing to get their story out first, and then also try to decide, who do we believe? And now it's becoming harder because, again, we can't even sometimes agree even on the facts of history anymore. And I think I made a comment about that when we were talking about news. When we're on I think it was either one of the barbershop or one of the Tuesday night shows. One of the problems today with people trying to have a good debate, nobody necessarily knows. No one has a fair arbitrator. You know what I'm saying? It's like I share a story. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, we used to debate sports like all the time, like stats, history about the player, who was greater, this and that. Go to the stat book. Now, my friend, if I quoted a stat from something that he agreed with, then he validated the source. If I used the same source to disprove a point that he was making, he would invalidate the source. They're wrong about that one. They were right about the one that agreed with me, but they're wrong about the one that they're disagreeing me about. So a lot of times we can't even get on the same page in terms of what the facts are. Like, so we can debate our perspectives of history and whatnot, but it's becoming harder to have an objective source to say, no, this is the final say on it. Everyone's going to trust their own sources to validate their points, rather than being able to look at history objectively to say, hey, no, these things actually happened. And the pushback is, oh, well, your sources are wrong. Oh, well, that person had a bias. That person had this. And that. It's becoming harder to embrace, to have
with history
a
too,
conversation. Yeah.
I have gotten screaming matches with people trying to tell me my facts are completely wrong about history. Yeah. I'm like, how am I wrong when I grew up in it and I have literally seen it?
But see, the pushback would say that's the problem, because you're in it. So you're going to be, as you started the show with, you said, I might be biased,
and I'm honest at least about it.
Exactly. But again, that's sometimes the problem in having the conversation, because you might be, like I said, like the Acropolis, all that stuff is outside my door. I can see it. And people will still fight you on it because, again, they have also their own bias. And so part of just, again, that's why I'm saying this might be one of the biggest gray areas in the world right now. How do we interpret history? How do we interpret periods of time? When we look at ancient culture, we look at it today saying, oh, they were so barbaric and it was brutal and whatnot. But how do you rationalize ancient standards by modern standards? Child sacrifices or brutal treatment of people or whatnot. That we have Geneva Accords now in terms of how people need to be treated in wartime. But back in the day when everything was just like, all bets are off, we burn people at the stake. We burn, just all kinds of crazy stuff.
I'm not going to argue the fact that it was barbaric and non-humane. I'm not going to argue that fact. I agree 100%. Some of them are disgusting. Let's be honest. I'm like, Vikings, great example. When they raided a village, it was all free game. And like, you wanted to go ahead and rape 5 different women? Go ahead. No one's going to stop you because it's a raid. You can do whatever you want. You want to, crucify a couple of priests? Go ahead. You know what? You go Valhalla for that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue it was barbaric, cruel, and inhumane. That I'm not going to argue.
Yeah.
What my argument statements are, like, for example, someone's arguing with Atlantis about with me. Atlantis is saying they have proven it's somewhere in Greece, but Greek government is not going to let them search for it because of the problems we had over the years of people stealing artifacts out of Greece. Okay, cool. But they're arguing the fact Atlantis was never in Greece. But they're already proven it on facts. It is in Greece. They have documents. It is in Greece, but they can't find the location of it.
Right.
Other fact, Alexandra, who, from Alexander the Great, he opened the great library of Alexandria. It never existed in Greece. But there are facts. There's a whole town called Alexandra.
Right.
You telling me how's that? Like, those are the facts I'm arguing now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I think
a war in time in China when some kingdom got torn down or burned down to the ground. Certain tribe were wiped off from the face of the earth.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
that's the thing. It's hard. Like I said, war. Yeah. Like I said, war is exacting, and especially back then, war was total. You wanted to bury, like I said, like nobody knew about ancient Egypt for a long time. You know what I mean? Because it was like you had this ancient culture. They had astronomy. Like a lot of the technology almost had to be reinvented, right? Because back the Egyptians, they knew astronomy. They were able to chart planets. They had telescopes. They had all this stuff, which after that civilization was wiped out, it wasn't until like hundreds of years later, when you had the Galileos and the Copernicuses and people like that. But that stuff existed in ancient Egypt. But again, once the sand kind of covered that area, stuff had to be dug up. And now we've had whole civilizations dug up that nobody knew existed before. So unfortunately, that's what oftentimes happens with war. War was like, again, we're not only looking to beat you or subject you, we're looking to wipe you off the face of the earth. We're not interested in your preservation. We're interested in ours. So yeah, you might have invented this first. We're going to take it and claim it as our own, or we're just going to just get rid of it altogether. I mean, so that's the problem, especially with ancient history as well, that, again, it's hard to get a clear picture, or that, again, the history has to be rewritten because, again, like you said, a lot of these ancient things that people didn't think these places existed, archaeology is literally digging these places up out of hundreds of feet of sand or dirt or whatever, and they're discovering these places now. So history in modern times is very fluid. And we all have to be willing to, I think, accept the facts as they are and say, look, this is what you might have thought. Modern technology or modern discovery has found something different, and we need to adapt our thinking. But sometimes we get so attached to what we've been taught that a lot of times we don't want to necessarily go away from it. So it's a so I think that's it's a problem. But I think everything seems to be on the table now in terms of what we might have thought we knew of history, and come to find out later on we don't know it all. I was just watching, and again, this is relatively modern, certainly on the world on the world stage. The Kennedy assassination, or the deletion of Kennedy. Right. Again, I was taught in school, who deleted JFK. That was like known. And then, but you always knew you had these conspiracy theories out in terms of it was a inside job, it was CIA or whatever. But again, there's been like breadcrumbs that this wasn't just one shooter. This wasn't just one thing. It's what might have been conspiratorial might actually have some legitimacy in terms of, hey, but then they got those files, which should have been released. But they're not releasing them anytime soon, because it's like,
technically it's, I think, what is it, 20 years? I think they say, or 30 years. I'm not sure the time.
It depends on the level of classification, right? But certainly the Kennedy files, I believe that at the max they should have been released like 10 years. I think 50 years. I think was supposed to be the limit, the absolute limit. But they found a way to finagle again where there's a lot of that information that's still locked down. It's almost as if they have no intention of ever releasing that public, or what they have to do is they have to wait until everybody who was ever associated with it died before they even consider releasing it. So yeah. So again, there's unfortunately there's interests, there's motivations in terms of what drives people to sell certain narratives. And again, had we known about these things,
If I'm not mistaken, Paul, again,
yeah,
please correct me wrong. I know he's in the chat. Snowman, he's usually pretty good at stuff. He
yeah,
probably knows the exact dates. And to his Snowman's question, it was between the 30s and 40s when this Sphinx was. It wasn't between when they were discovered it. I actually, fun fact, I have an uncle who lives in Egypt.
mhm.
Um,
30s of I thought it was known more so than that. I mean, I think the one thing I did see was, yeah, I did know that the nose of the Sphinx was blown off,
yes,
because the problem with it is that the Sphinx had a nose like mine,
yes, that's correct.
and they did not want people to know that, oh my gosh, this ancient civilization might have been persons of color or Africans or wherever you want to call them. And so that was something that, that people didn't want to acknowledge for a lot of years. And so they had to come back and again, but everyone is having this everyone is having this rethinking of how we've been taught versus what was real. I'm a big, you talk about the history.
Back then it was,
Yeah.
it was black and white, simple as that. That's the best way I can put it. Because this is me being a big history fan. I'm not, as much I love my Greek history, I also am educated in other histories, not because I'm a history major. I love history.
Mhm.
So even Egyptian history, African history,
Right.
if you say you were a different color back then, it was like looked down. You definitely have a mixed race child. Oh my God, you'd be crucified on a stake for that. There was no such thing as mixing race back then. It happened, but you were like in a forest living on your own. If it happened, you never lived in the township. You were exiled if that happened. So a couple of these questions, like we don't want to look past what we know. I agree on that part you said.
Yeah.
So we need to start look past it. Like, as much I am very hard-headed to come to my Greek stuff, but I'm also very educated. I found the documents, legit documents. If you're telling me, okay, Alexander the Great was not Greek, I'm gonna prove the documents. You say, okay, here's the websites, here's legit stuff. And so not something because you think, oh, he's Egyptian. Yes, he conquered Egypt. Not gonna argue that. His body's buried in Egypt. I'm not gonna argue that either. Is his body ever found? No, they didn't find his body. But that was I'm using those as an example, of course. So there are a lot of black and white here. Even with, let's say, modern stuff like a Kennedy assassination, we know facts. They're like the story's not 100% true because one minute you hear is one assassin, and you hear two,
multiple,
three up to four.
Yeah.
Like, and I agree with it. They should have released it by now. But for some reason, they're not releasing stuff.
And that, but that's in a lot of, I think in a lot of different peoples are dealing with the same thing, but like I said, America, I think might be unique is again, so much in so little time. I said, we don't have we can't, it's impossible for us to even fathom any country or legacy or dynasty that's like thousands of years old. That's just not, that is so hard to comprehend, especially considering not only the modern advancements that have taken place over the last 100 and some years, but just where this country's been in the last 50 years in terms of how we view things. So for peoples to have that kind of continuity for that length of time is mind-boggling to us. And so everything is going to be on the table more so for us than I think it would be again for people from Greece or from China or from Japan. And even in Japan, it's like I was just reading before the show. Like I want to know, like, what are the Japanese people taught about World War II? And they really, again, they're taught it, but again, it's from like the Japanese perspective. They don't want to know. They don't teach about the rape of Nanking. They don't teach necessarily about Pearl Harbor. Or if they do, it's like, well, the reason we did it was because of this, Now, conversely, in Germany, now this is something I've understood. In Germany, they teach you everything about Hitler, about the Third Reich, about the Nazis. It's like, man, some Germans even said they almost teach it too much. It's it's almost like it is mandatory that you must learn about Nazism, fascism, the Nazi, the Reich, the Third Reich. It is mandatory for as young as you're able to remember, because they're saying like they don't want people to make the mistakes of replicating that. And so,
They want
but
to know where you came from, in other words.
yeah, because they don't want to repeat. But here, like I said, it's happening now. That's the crazy thing about it. It is happening right now, where
We're repeating history right now.
they are trying to change history, rewrite it. They say like they don't even, like in Florida, like the books they were trying to come out with, they didn't want to even recognize that Rosa Parks. They take out the fact that she was a black woman. Well, why was she asked to take out her to give up her seat? Because she was black and she needed to sit in the back.
I'm going on a
book,
limb here for a second. I'm going to go on a limb, and I know I might piss a lot of people by saying this, but I don't want to care shit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel right now we're going through the second black and white war. I know the word for it. It can't come to my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like we went through it already. In the 40s, 30s, whatever it was. So why are we going through this again? Or what? We're going to start splitting people up again? Okay, you have to go on one side. We have to go to the second side. I feel like we're going to that way.
Well, again, it's what I started with, right? That the Civil War ended in 1865, but it's almost like the battle was over in 1865, but the war didn't necessarily end. And so, like I said, all those statues that you were talking about earlier, most of those statues came out in the 1920s is when those statues were put up. And then after the Civil War, you had a 12-year period, Reconstruction, which was supposed to not only free black people, every black person was supposed to get 40 acres of land and a mule to work the land as a compensation or reparation. That was supposed to be our reparation, 40 acres of land and a mule, so you can kind of rebuild and start yourself. We never got it. Then by 1876, there was the Compromise of 1876 that had a U.S. president to be elected. And part of him being elected, and I forget the name of the president off the top of my head, Anton, I know he's dropping bombs in the bag in terms of history. He could probably remind me. I want to say Buchanan, but the conditions of this person becoming president was that the troops, the Union troops, had to be pulled out of the South. That was called the 1876 Compromise, that took the troops out of the South, and in replacement for that brought in Jim Crow. And we had almost 100 years of Jim Crow law. Segregation essentially started in the South. That's the word I'm
looking for. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. I feel we're going back there. I'm not saying we're going there. It feels like that. It
feels that way. Look, to a lot of ADOS, FBA, African Americans, it does feel that way to us. It's like, what are we doing?
I feel like that too, because I have a lot of friends. Like, you're one of my
absolutely
good friends, and I feel for you guys. That's why I'm on these panels arguing these goddamn fucking facts. If I have to go to war, strap a goddamn fucking tank on my back and go to war with you, I will. I don't give a shit. But my point is trying to get to, we need to stop it before it gets too far.
Yeah. But that gets into like politics, and that gets into a.
I'm not going to politics.
I'm not trying to go there. But I'm just saying.
That's the BMU side of the show,
right? But I'm just letting you know that's the complexity of U.S. history versus arguably any other ancient history. It's almost like it's easier to talk about Greek history than it is about American history because of so much rapid turnover, so many different groups, so many different parties, so many different people affected. Like I said, taught to a Native American, taught to an African American, taught to an Italian, taught to a Jewish American. Everybody talked to a Japanese American. Again, they had the internment camps here during World War II for people just because they were Japanese. We're put in internment because it's like, back then it's like, look, you look like them, so we got to put you in a place. So there's been too. There's been so much turnover here. And like I said, relatively speaking, people keep forgetting how young America is. I don't know if we went back 1200 BC, what that first 200 and something years of Greece was at that time, how turbulent it was before they became the world power that they did, or the Romans or anybody else. But it was tribal for here for a long time. And again, we're still working it out. If we're even here 1,000 years from now, we might be telling a different story. But as it is right now, this is a fast moving train, and that train is trying to be taken in a lot of different directions. And even just the demographics of the country is changing. They're talking about by 2040, white people in the country are going to be the minority. They're going to go under 50% by 2045. And so for a lot of people, that worries them, that scares them. It's like, hey, we're all human beings, right? But for a lot of people, that's driving a lot of, again, this idea of we're being replaced. And people are acting in those fears. So again, our view of history, in fact, and it's sad because people have even taken terms like woke, which is generally like considered like a negative term. Wokes used to mean, oh, we were taught this about history or about a person or whatever, and now we're woke because now we understand what really happened because the truth is out, and now we understand what's really going on. Now woke means something totally different. Woke just means you're just trying to rewrite and just trying to blank out people or whatever. It's like, no, I thought woke was about understanding the truth of a situation. But people have demonized the word now. So if you go around talking about, well, I'm woke, now people look at you like, okay, there's another one. He's another radical. He's just trying to bury the history that's here. So again, so it's very charged here. But I think amongst Greeks, yes, I'm sure people may debate over peoples and times and wars that have taken place in Greece and historic figures. But I think here I think this is probably the most contentious place where history is argued.
Fast. So when you were talking about when America versus discover all this stuff, so back then we were still going through a transition from the ancient kings to the modern kings. The first modern king was Otto. King Otto was the first. He's officially started, and I hold that very lightly, at 1815. But he was in the middle of transition from the old king into the new kingdom. So we were in a transition during that time. So it's kind of hard to say back then what was going on because there are no real documents when you transition from one monarchy to the next monarchy. Keep that in mind.
Right.
So with us, not acknowledging things, I agree with it. We don't acknowledge things, so it's too late sometimes. Think about it. How often do we acknowledge something too? Is like, oh shit hit the fans. Now we can acknowledge, oh shit, this happened.
Yeah. Let me ask you a general question.
Yes, I am really Greek.
Well, you see, that's what you say, but now history again. Now I asked you a couple shows ago, would you be willing to take a DNA test to verify how Greek
I'm actually
really
been thinking about it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been thinking about it lately.
But you said before you're scared. What if you're only 80%? What if you're 75%? What if you got a little brother in there? What if some African in there? I see that nose isn't quite straight. It's a little round.
Listen, mine has been broken so many times.
I don't know. But what if there's something there that are you gonna feel less Greek because you may have come from a different, and again, but that's a real thing, just I'm kidding with you, but but for a lot of people, in terms of if they had to know, like I know for Italians for a long time, they didn't necessarily want to recognize that a lot of them have a lot of African DNA. When Hannibal went through those mountains and whatnot, those dudes, they got the women, right? That's it's like, remember that line from Conan the Barbarian, right? What's best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of the women, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they did.
This is the argument I get a lot with Sicilians, and it says Sicilia was mostly African Americans who lived there,
right? Yeah.
And all of a sudden, oh no. I'm like, yeah, it's facts. It's and some it's only 1 or 2% would tell me, yes, Peter, you are 100% right. We do have black ancestors in us, and the other half is like, no, we're completely white. All this, I'm like, why does it fucking make a difference?
But that's the problem with it. It for some people is they've been made, and again, that gets into a whole nother aspect that I don't even want to talk about. We might want to have a show, a serious show, talk about race,
Yeah,
and
we can do that.
that whole thing. We may want to go into that eventually, but I want to keep it in
But
this space.
back to your original question, if I came back and I had like say 20%
Whatever,
African and being
non-Greek, just say non-Greek.
African for argument's sake, all right, or non-Greek, like you said, um, be okay with it. Be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
thought
that's
about it, but it doesn't. If my DNA says I'm something else, it doesn't change where I came from.
right, right.
You cannot take that away from
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
But you
And like I
can,
said, for most ADOS FBA African Americans, we've come to accept that again, we don't have a home. We can talk about Africa all we want to. The average ADOS FBA is about 15, anywhere from between 15 and 20% non-African DNA. And even that African DNA is from all over Western Africa for the most part. So we come to an understanding that really our history starts here. We can embrace Africa. We can talk about, that's our ancestral home and whatnot. But again, it's homes because again, we're all spread out. I showed you share with people my DNA breakdown on the show we did some time back. And but again, so for us, our history for the most part starts here in terms of let's go about that DNA test. But
I gotta speak on that too because
go for it.
even though you are honorary Nigerian, Shay is 95% Nigerian, and he did a DNA test about that, and it came back. But even though BMU is skeptical about DNA, they're going by much deeper from what it is because.
Well, first of all, I'm still upset. I'm still upset with you, and most especially Ekene, because he knew I was his brother, and he denied me, just like he did Killmonger. Right? They denied me. So I got some payback for him and a lot of those Igbo brothers who kept me from my heritage.
That's the thing.
If you want to go to war, just call me, man. I'm ready to go to war anytime you want, man.
So I'm still swole about that. But
it's good. It's good.
Yeah. But I want to ask you the question I was driving at. And I didn't want to get off the when I talked about Hannibal, for example. The general question is, how do we determine greatness? Because you got all these people, Alexander the Great and Hannibal and, all the Egyptian kings and these military, someone mentioned Napoleon earlier. We use these terms when it comes to people in history. But how can we summarize, or should we even be using words like that?
Okay,
maybe
I can talk about Alexander the Great.
A deeper question.
I studied him massively over the years. So the difference about Alexander the Great versus the other Greek empires or conquerors, do you want to call them?
Mm-hmm.
He when he conquered a region or a country, he didn't want you to change your religion. He didn't want to change your language, change nothing. The only thing that changed, who's your king, your taxes are getting paid to. That's all he did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why he was able to conquer so much land, because people go, oh, wait a minute, you're not going to make me change believe in your gods? No. But you're not going to make me learn Greek? No. You're not. No. You're going to continue living your life normally like it was. The only thing different is now you're under my empire. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can get behind that. Here's the taxes and sign me up. And that's why his army grew. And one story, and this is one of fascinates me with him, they're running out of water and they're on this tour now from from country to country, and the soldiers pass them the last water. It goes, Your Highness, this is the last one. We want you to have it. All men want it. He opened it, dumped it on the ground. He goes, my men drink, I don't drink. So he lived his life like a soldier, like it was. He was a very young soldier. I believe he started he was 12, 13 in his teen years. I remember that much. But as he grew into a soldier with his men. He took him very slowly. But he didn't change anything. He kept everything the same. That's what made him. That's why he got the name Alexander the Great, because he did not change it. That's why they call him the greatest king of the ancient times.
Right. Gotcha. So, but I guess if someone had a pushback, he still conquered. which is going to be the case with
Not,
anybody. It's like,
not going to argue that
like,
one bit.
yeah, like I said, the terms of the surrender, you can be paid. Like I said, some back in the day, some empires like they just wiped you out. They just like done. You're done. Some, again, there was a peaceful transition. Some were sort of blended. Like I know in Africa, and Africa is very complicated. I know Black David could probably talk about that when you talk about colonization of Africa.
Well, it might be a bad idea to do a part 2 of this and bring Black David on here.
Well, we can do that. Well, actually, maybe on our next call-in show, because he was actually talking about, again, we have a lot of people in the chat who've been sharing some history. I know Angry Snowman, shout out to you for being here tonight. Appreciate you being here. Joshua Jones, see you stopped in tonight. Certainly salute to you for being here as well. Tonight, Trey Ferg, my man, my 7B brother, good to see you dropping through here as well. But maybe on our next call-in show, that maybe we can revisit some of this topic, and those who do have, again, another perspective on history or based on the knowledge that they have, maybe they can call back into that show. So we typically have the format of the show going forward is like once a month we're going to have a call-in, and we can talk about any prior topic that you have followed since you've been following the gray area. If you want to bring anything up for discussion, anything that we talk about, anything that you disagree with that we've talked about, certainly look out for that show, that next call-in show, and we'll drop the link in the chat. You can call in and we can chop it up then. So we would love to have you guys back, and that's actually something that's part of what we want to build into the show. I mean, we're kind of fleshing this out just based on what we know. You guys can certainly offer us a lot more perspective going forward. So we want to have that opportunity for our viewers to have that opportunity to chop it up with us. So look forward for that show. And I think in a couple of weeks, I think we're looking to have our next call-in show. And so look for that banner. And take your notes down. You can go back. Anything that I said, you can certainly quote it, mark it, clip it. And we can talk about it again on that follow-up show. So I just want to put that out there for everyone. But yeah, we would love to have different perspectives come up. So, but so that question though of whether it be Napoleon, I think Anton had a comment about says most people never knew that my ancestors defeated Napoleon when France was sent his forces to Haiti to reclaim the island. Right. This is after the I believe the Haitian Revolution, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that started in 1804. And in fact, Haiti was the first of the slave holding areas in the Western Hemisphere to actually revolt and declare their independence in 1804. And so, so again, he's sharing here that Napoleon sent forces to try to reclaim it. He defeated and pushed those forces back. So again, how do you view Napoleon? How does anybody view any dictator or leader? You can call them great to an extent, but how do historians classify, or just for people just even sharing what they know about history, just having a conversation like we're having here tonight? Sometimes it's difficult to use terms like that.
It is.
Yeah. In fact, I remember even a line from Black Panther. Believe when it was T'Challa's father told him if something to the effect of, and I don't know the exact quote, maybe Black David knows it, but said, if you want to be great, essentially you're going to have to do some stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're not going to just be this benevolent leader person or whatever. You're going to have to get your hands dirty sometimes if you truly want to be great. And obviously in the movie, as we know from Black Panther, he discovered what happened with Killmonger and his father and all that kind of stuff, and he had to address those wise men and check them on what they did, and say you were wrong for leaving them there, and all that stuff. So I don't know if from a historical perspective, can you be great without blood, or can you be great without again doing some inhumane things when we looking and visiting these people, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like, we have it even here, like, U.S. presidents, everyone loves Kennedy here, like he was this great, the image of Camelot and all that kind of stuff, but we know he he had his ladies, he had his affairs, he had, he did a lot of stuff. It's back then though, the press was more sensitive. Like they didn't the press back then, they weren't all in your business, like showing, and the press knew everything that he was doing, but it wasn't proper to share that kind of information with the public. But you
It's
can
funny
look
how
at him and
it's
be
funny
like,
how you said
yeah, he
that.
might have been a great president, but was he a great husband? Was he a great this or that? It's hard to make that when you're talking about how do you look at a person's life overall, and then how do you
So I have a
yeah,
personal belief behind this, and this is my
yeah,
personal opinion. I don't care what you do in your private life. If you're a good president, that's what cares about me. If you took care of the us American people, us American voters, and you do the right thing to the country, I don't care what you do behind closed doors. That's your business, not mine.
mhm,
That's my personal opinion. If let's say Kennedy was the best president ever made, for argument's sakes,
mhm,
and he all this fact is true, like we know he had several girlfriends doing this, but he did great things for the country. Do
mhm.
what do you want? I don't care. I want
Okay,
to do
so
the right
all right, so let me push back on that. So
thing. Mhm.
great, and again, I'm not accusing I'm just saying hypothetically, right?
Of course, yeah, of course.
When you're in this place of authority, right? And we know, let's just take America for example, right? We got a CIA, we got an FBI,
Mhm.
and we know some of the people who were behind it. You had Dulles, who started the CIA, and you had Jesus Angleton, and that was his name, James Jesus Angleton. That was his, a major figure in the CIA. You had Hoover was in the FBI, and you find out later on those guys did a lot of covert stuff. Like when we talk about, okay, as long as you kept America safe, yeah, but we know the CIA, for example, carried out a lot of uh, clandestine operations, assassinating, I don't know if I can say that, but leaders of other countries, other nations, um, triggered wars in different areas. Just like I said, all kinds of, like I said, covert
Dirty
operations.
stuff.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
so from our perspective, it's like, oh yeah, he was great to us. But if you did things that, you know, um, now that the record is coming out, that those things were done again, like I said, records are being released all the time. At least some of these records. I think Anton was right. Yeah, I think the Kennedy record should have came out back. I think in June of 2023. All the Kennedy
So I
files
actually
were
looked
coming
that
out.
up before.
Yeah,
It's between 25 to 50 years the FBI have to release them. If
right.
for
But
some reason
some are
they're not
still
releasing them,
classified.
yeah.
I think he
So
still said that some documents they're still holding them up for. They
yeah,
say for again. It's like a buzzword. That's for national security is like the buzzword. Oh, you don't want you to see it. It's national
that's
security.
their
That's
way of saying when we don't want to tell you, so shut
we're
the fuck
not
up.
going to want you to see it. But I'm
no,
just
you
saying. But
guys,
even with these leaders, so again, you can look at Alexander. You could look at
Mhm.
any major power. When we find out the extent to which they did to make things look peaceful to us, then do we still call those guys great because of because we find out about those things? That's what I'm saying. I think the word great is used oftentimes too much when we look at history. Again, yeah, the people have a strong dislike of his. Is interesting enough. Now, one of my favorite periods of time to look at is Vietnam, and the French have a lot to do with Vietnam. Why we got in and the promises that were made. And that's the problem with history also. Again, a lot of these things that leaders do, a lot of times it comes back to bite us in the butt later on. Like people talk about 9/11 and all that. Well, we created those guys. We talk about Iran. We were responsible for some of that stuff. And when it comes to Vietnam, again, the people who we fought, we were supposed to help them. Okay. The guy Chiang Kai um, Ho Chi Minh, he worked for the Allies in World War II against, Japan. It was like, look, you guys do spy work. You guys help us. When this war is over, then you get your independence. So Vietnam was supposed to be independent of France after 1945, post-war. But France didn't want to let him go. France reneged on the deal.
it's
And
funny how you
so,
mentioned.
Then they went to war with France, and they beat the French. This is in the 50s. And that's when the US started backing France because France is their ally. And so really the Vietnam War started really in the mid 50s, not the 60s and 70s as it's normally portrayed. It goes way back, but it goes back because promises were made that weren't kept. And because of that, the people in Vietnam, those guys, Ho Chi Minh and those guys went to the communists because the communists said, well, we'll give you a better deal. And that's what started that whole conflict. And it went on. And that was the first time you can argue, well, really Korea, I guess you can argue, but that was like the first war that is recognized that America lost. As big and bad as we were, we lost. But we never should have been there. But the French decided they didn't want to let the Vietnamese people go and be independent. And that's what started to hold. And they drug us along for the ride. And then we picked up more and more of the responsibility as we went on. So it became a quagmire for us because of that. So again, so when we talk about greatness, great leaders, and back then it was I forget who the leader was of France was at the time. I forget the name of the guy, but
during what when
we're doing that World War II period. Yeah, I forget the name of the de Gaulle. I think Charles France de Gaulle. I think was the leader in France at that time. So it was definitely again how we look at these periods of times and be like, man, what we were thinking, what we were doing. When you look at great people. Again, a lot of that stuff has to be taken sort of with until we get all the history, it's hard to make that evaluation. But we put statues up of these people and murals and banners and pictures and stuff like that and be like, hey, but we found out the real, like what they had to do, the dirty stuff. We may not be so charitable to their legacy. And I think and that's what happens with a lot of people. Like, actors, and John Wayne, right, was this great American actor, and back in the 40s and 50s, and he was this big time guy. And then you found out some of the views that he had, and people start to look at you differently once all your business comes out. And I think that's a major problem of history is that, again, until we get the whole stories, it's very hard to make we're only taking like a snapshot of a person's life. But we don't recognize everything that was going on. I saw the Bob Marley pick recently. Now again, that was a family project, but my man had like 13 kids by like 9 to 11 different women, something like that. They barely touched on it in the movie, But again, how do you measure him as a man? Then you say, well, it's complex, right? That's kind of like a drawback. Well, it's complex. But that's the problem oftentimes with studying history. It's like the conclusions that we come through based on the information that we have. And the problem is we don't always have all of the right information. Black David, you still there? I think you were trying to say something. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I had that thing highlighted for a reason because when you mentioned about the French have done many atrocities across the globe. When Anton mentioned that Haiti got their independence about 1804, that's being documented as the first African nation that got their independence, way ahead of any African nation.
Right. Because most African nations didn't get theirs until like the 50s and 60s, right? There was like a domino in Africa for all these independent states, like in the 60s, I think, right?
And right now, yeah, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali are all former French colony, completely French colony. When I mean completely former, they kicked them out recently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going on today right now. So there's a lot of deep history that the French had their hands on that created a lot of destruction. I didn't know that there's a lot of French colony in Africa. Besides Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, there's much more behind that. There's Gabon, and there's a few other as well. So when Anton mentioned that one to an effort to focus on the African war, they're one of the main components that divided Africa. Africa used to be 5 kingdoms before they made multiple countries.
Right.
They did it on purpose to divide the power of the African people. So there's a lot of history that is still being dug in right now to this day.
Yeah. And it's also about history is not necessarily in isolation, especially when you talk about these global powers. who was ultimately affected. Yeah, it might have benefited France or Spain, or whatever the European power was, but what about the people who've been affected on the other side? How would they view um, a lot of these wars, a lot of these in these interactions with people? And again, we're saying in the chat again, shout out to Joshua Jones. You're always checking us on certain things. The goal, he says that certainly the goal was to stop the spread of communism. And since Vietnam, there hasn't been, again, I would have to, I'd want to verify that, but he said, out, aside from Vietnam, there hasn't been a communist state or nation since Vietnam. I would have to verify that, but again, I'll take your I'll take your I'll take your word for it. But again, people again look at things differently. When I said America lost the war, at least certainly in terms of the perception, whether or not we lost it or not, or the aims of were accomplished or whatnot, what I think it did to this country. And also again, when the data came out, when the Pentagon papers were released or leaked, okay, they weren't released, they were leaked. And when Americans found out America's early participation in Vietnam and the things that were done, and that's what often led to those protests and those marches and rallies and the treatment of the soldiers and all that that came after that. Because again, prior to that point, everybody had a view of America that we were always on the side of right, and this is God's country, and we always operated with righteous intent, and we
So
find
I'll
out
give you
later
a good
on that
example
we
really
didn't
fast.
always.
Like with the greatness and everything you're saying, like we had a general called during the Greco-Turkish War that never ended, still going on to this day. That's also per opinion. We had a general that was double agent, you want to call it in a way. He said he was Greek, but he worked with the Turkish, but he's actually working with the Greek. So he was going two-faced back and forth. The Turkish put him in prison, but the whole time he's working with the Greek government, and that's how we pretty much got over that war. And that's why he's a legend in the in the Greek military. I'm using that as an example, of course. The greatness, it's such a big word, and it goes back to what you were saying. How do you define that greatness?
Mm-hmm.
Because all these guys do some shady shit to get to that point. To
Yeah,
put the name down in infamy.
I'm
right.
glad you mentioned shade. I'm not glad shade because I'm glad Anton did that. Benin, Algeria, Tunisia, Cameroon, and Cote d'Ivoire, including Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, were using the same currency for so long to this day,
Mm,
and they were robbing these countries extremely blind. So you can imagine what was going on for so many years until those top three when I mentioned that they had enough. They kick out the French nationalists out of their country completely. Burkina Faso was the first one that did that and shut down the border. After that was Niger and Mali. Right now, Roman had it, the leader in Gabon was trying to tell them to come back to ECOWAS, would have a connection with the French, but they don't want nothing to do with that. And they're also introducing their own new currency right now as we speak.
mm.
That has been a word out going on in Africa. There's a lot going on in Africa right now concerning the French right now, which is the big deal. So I'm glad
Yeah,
you're speaking about this.
yeah. So
It,
it has certainly implications for the present in terms of again the alliances that we have, the relationships that have been formed, but it also has it, but it also reflects again on history, right? And how again how do we perceive history? Or how are we supposed to think about these things, especially when we want to? Because history can get romantic, but again, it's not shared by it's not shared by everyone the same way. So again, the great empires, the great leaders, and again, it doesn't matter. And we know, and again, you're right, Groom, when you're talking about different people, their personal lives. Again, all these guys, Martin Luther King, and we know all these guys had their dalliances.
yeah, even Martin Luther King, like people think he was a saint,
Yeah,
but he wasn't. He was
yeah. So
he was
so
free.
so so again, so how do we view these people in the totality, and that's oftentimes something difficult to measure. Even like I said, war. Like I said back then, the brutality oftentimes of war. How do you deal with assessing that by again our modern? Remember that episode of Star Trek? This is like the old series where
The
you
original
had the
OG, right?
what's that?
The original Star Trek series.
The
Correct,
original
right?
series, right? Remember
Okay.
the episode where you had these two planets, they were warring with one another, but they were doing it by computer. So it's like you press a button and okay, 10,000 people died. They had to go into these chambers and eliminate 10,000 people because they didn't want to go to like the real war. They haven't seen each other. They just knew that they had to kind of keep this war going on. So Kirk and the Enterprise, they got sort of stuck in the middle of it. And at the end of the day, they wind up destroying the computers and say, oh, well, we got to fight for, you mean we actually have to fight for real? Because the war kept going on, but it was so sanitary because everybody was like, like, oh, the cities were clean. There was no damage or anything like that. And it just went on and on. But it's like, okay, now you guys really have to fight, or you guys can really make peace and actually talk to somebody and really come to resolution. But it's one of my favorite episodes. But again, how we look at the brutality of how war was, when people had to delete each other hand to hand, bayonets or swords or spears, or like you said, the fire arrows and stuff like that. Now it's like a video game. You send a drone in, and boom, it's done. It's like, oh,
see, it's funny because I did a paper when I was in high school about it was a little bit about a year after 9/11 happened, just in case we go to the next war. How would it be? How do you imagine the war? And my answer was, it's going to be a push of a button. This is before droids come out. I'm talking about nukes more than anything. You just hit the button, boop, pew. That's all you needed. But obviously that didn't happen. But that's how I imagine a war. Being more a push the button. We're going to that way anyway. Eventually.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like becoming, because you so it's like I said, you're becoming disconnected by it. But I like the comment that again Joshua put up. You can put that last comment that Joshua had up there. Are people looking through a lens of morals? I don't see how you can't. If so, morals are expensive and tend to land on the law side of history. Yeah, I mean that's. But I think it's inevitable. How could you not look at something just because we're human beings? And I think we are certainly guided by some sort of principles or values, however you want to define them, whether you believe in a God or no God at all, or whatever is driving your decisions. But I don't see how could you, I don't see how you could not be look at that. And especially as your morals and values change over time. Like I said, we're different people. Like even the Bible, like I could look at some of the stuff in there, like the idea of stoning someone to death. I just can't see that. Look,
So here's my
that one, but I just can't. My modern sensibilities can't embrace that, and I have to look at that even from a biblical standpoint. I still look at that as barbaric. I do. I just can't. That's just something I just can't grab. Yeah, I can't wrap my mind around to accept. It's like, oh well, it was in the Bible, so it must have been good or whatever. Like, so I don't see how you can avoid that.
So here's my pushback with you pointing out with that. So we're talking about morals. Let's use the war right now going on with Russia and Ukraine. When this war started, Russia put in exactly made orders. They're breaking every warlord treaties, everything. They're gunning people down and everything. Where's the morals then?
Yeah.
You talking about
again,
morals,
that's fluid also.
Yeah, and
but
he's
again,
an Orthodox Christian, by the way. And keep that in mind, he's an Orthodox Christian, too.
Right?
And like as an Orthodox Christian, I'm speaking as a Christian now too. It gets everything we learn from the Bible. Okay, we don't do this stuff, but he's doing everything.
So I want to. All right, so you just post up. So has the Orthodox Church? Because I know there's a Russian Orthodox, there's a Greek Orthodox, or whatever. Again, we had the talk with Father Costantino. Have they come out with any official declaration or condemnation of Putin or the Russians for this? Have they spoke on
To be
this?
honest, I don't know. I haven't looked into the religious part of it. To be honest with you,
Okay, okay. Because again,
I'm not gonna
if
say
you're
they're
saying
bullshit. I'll
because
be
he
honest.
right, because I'm thinking from his perspective, he might think that this is a look. This is like a holy just war, and I'm doing this because I'm an Orthodox. Is the reason why I'm doing this. Again, I don't know what's necessarily driving him in that regard, but he may think so. But again, I'd be interested to know if the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox, or whoever he feels he has, allied with, have they come out with any official declaration? But it's interesting. But the similar thing happened, and again, World War II. I mean, with Germany, the church at the time, and again, I'm not saying Hitler was this Christian guy or whatever, but were they silent? Or how much did they speak up when, especially once you started seeing what was happening with the Jewish people? I don't know if they, not to say that they were complete supporting him, but were they silent in that time? I'd be curious to know that too, if anyone has that information. But yeah, but morals, like I said, it makes it dicey when you have to not only examine history but also on the acts that you take. Like if we go to war with somebody, um, what's really driving that? Do we have all the information before we enact the tolls that we do on people? And we're seeing it now. Certainly, we're seeing it with the. I'm not trying to get this channel flagged in any way, but there's conflicts. I'll just say there's conflicts going on, and there's tolls being taken that people are disagreeing about. I'll just leave it there. But it does make it difficult when you have to make these sort of that he's saying that they're cool with it. That would be it.
That'd be a surprise for me. No offense, bud, but I have a hard time believing that personally.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, we did there's parts of the Bible. Yeah, I'd say go in there and kill everybody, man, woman, and child. Yeah, that's again, even for me, that's some stuff that again in my current sensibilities, that's difficult to wrap my
Let me
mind
pick on
around.
that. Let me
But
pick on
again,
that.
but it's the same thing. Is what I was saying earlier. It's like, are we even in position to judge that? Because again, if that was sort of like the rules of engagement for a given time, like I said, now we're under this, these different accords now in terms of how wars are fought. Now there's certain places you're not supposed to bomb. You're not supposed to bomb hospitals and the stuff like that. I'm just a product of that. But yeah, if that's the way everybody fought back then am I to say that, okay, that was so wrong? I might be out. I admit, Joshua, I might be out of sorts for that. I acknowledge that,
So I'm reading
but
this right now.
it's difficult though, thing to wrap my head around. Go ahead.
So they're saying on this document I'm reading right now, is the Orthodox Russian Church is against his actions and are asking for him to be resigned, effective immediately from March 30th to 2024. This was published, the document.
So
So
it just came out.
yeah, this came out. They want him, dethroned. Everybody wants him dethroned, no matter
Okay.
what.
All
Even
right.
a general went after him, if you remember, and he goes, "I got more guns than you, so nice try, buddy."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a whole different story. We're not even going there, but we're talking about the whole power of war thing right now and the history of it. They're not cool with it
Mhm.
because it goes against everything the Bible says. I'm talking about the Orthodox. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
Christian. I'm
And
not
this
talking about
war's been
anything else.
going on for like what, like almost 3 years. So
2 years
again,
ago, I think it was 2 years when it started.
well, again, they already
Whatever, it
had
doesn't matter.
parts of Crimea already, right? And
Yeah.
then they kind of went into this further incursion. But the bottom line is the fact that they're just coming out this like a couple weeks ago, and this has been going on for so long. So again, sometimes people say your silence is complicit. Is that you're being complicit? So it's difficult. But so that's the thing. We're dealing with this in real time, and it's going to be interesting 50 years from now, 100 years from now, how people are going to look at this history, the history that's being formed right now. Who's going to be telling it, and from whose perspective? I mean, the Ukrainians are going to have a different version of events than the Russians do. or at least the
See,
leaders in those. And that's
and
the
I
other
send
thing
you
too,
the
because you're talking
document
about the
in the back
leaders.
chat. So if you, I'm sorry to cut you off. If you
Sure.
read further down the document,
Yeah,
it says
I'll
some people are calling this the Holy War of Russia.
right.
So it depends who you want to listen to. Now, that's like personally,
Yeah.
as a Christian Orthodox, I don't see this in Holy War. Number one, two,
Right.
I see this as a devil's war to just stir shit up.
Yeah.
Like that's how
Yeah.
I look at it.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's so again, the fact that we're having difficulty now, or people are having difficulty now trying to wrap their heads around current events and where things are going. Again, you got the Israelis and the Palestinians, that thing that's going on right now, the protests, like just local news here, Columbia University, you had a rabbi saying that, basically some of the Jewish students to stay home because it's becoming a hostile environment. There've been a lot of protests over the weekend. It's hard to wrap our minds around how to process current events as they are happening now.
It's
Now,
not
imagine going back
not easy.
hundreds, if not thousands of years, trying to wrap our heads around these type of events and either trying to find justification for them or what's the proper redress of these issues. Like when you talk about Africa, Black David, or if you talk about the slavery in the West, Western Hemisphere, the transatlantic slave trade, how do we come to some conclusions on that everybody can kind of get behind? And that's just becoming more increasingly impossible to do. I mean, I've heard people say slavery was the best thing that happened to us,
No, it
I
didn't.
would not
because
say
if it
that.
wasn't for that, then I wouldn't be here, I guess, talking
I
on
would.
this gray area show. So people find ways to justify, whatever. Go ahead, Black David.
I'm glad you said that because on TikTok, I've been jumping in on a lot of African podcasts discussing about the history and the current event that's taking place in Africa. Where it's not about Mali, it's about Burkina Faso. If it's not Burkina Faso, it's about Niger and about future coup that might take
Yeah,
place.
yeah,
Because when Anton mentioned Haiti, I had to remind myself Haiti was the first nation to fight against the French to get their independence, 1804. A lot of African countries got their own after 1950,
yeah.
1960.
It was a
So far
domino of
late.
African nations in the 50s and 60s that
But
declared their independence.
but
Yeah,
even though they got their so-called, the reason why I say so-called
yeah. I know where you're
independence,
going. Yeah,
because it looked like they have independence on paper, but behind closed door, there was still a leash upon them. Because when I mentioned Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, including the five other nations that Anton, I had to thank Anton for that because he understand what's going on.
hmm
Those countries were using one currency that the French forced them to use so that they still have control of their resource and their money. So when the first one who fight for complete independence from Burkina Faso, he shut down the border. He told every other nation to mind your own business.
hmm
And these are the other five nations that might do the same thing as well. Benin, Algeria, Tunisia, Cameroon, and Cote d'Ivoire.
hmm
Now imagine he shut down the border back in 2021, 2022. Within 2 years, he made a huge amount of development whereby he negotiated with the Russian as well with the Chinese. Which a lot of people say, oh, they're going to colonize it. No, that's not the case because here what's going on in Africa, in Katana history. America had their hand dirty too. They have their own hand in
yeah.
destabilizing Africa as a
Right.
continent.
hmm
So when I remember I talked to you offline, I talked to Guma offline about how Obama did the first round and Kamala did the second round of disrespectful policy that put them over the edge.
hmm
We were totally uncalled for. And I mentioned they will not do that to the Middle East because Middle East will not play that game with them.
Right.
So
Right.
when this is going on right now, you can imagine what's going on across the globe. Which I be telling people, you got to do your homework before you go to any country. Because in some cases, America is on the top of the food chain of Haiti nation. Now you have French right underneath them. So when have all the thing happening right now, and I saw a video recently how the former general of France said you need to recolonize Africa. I'm like, okay, that is something you want to trend likely.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand what create these meant, you go back into history. And we
Right.
finding too many things about history. My country, for example, my country was a business hub for the colonization of Africa.
Mm,
They were not only selling people, they were selling resources.
mm,
So when we got our independence, we took over that computer hub. That was a money making hub, which I did not realize was not in the history book.
right.
So when you say about what make us great, we are now questioning our elders. We are digging deep to find more fact about history that they don't want us to know because it's the fact that we know now. We go look at them. What did you do? Why
Yeah.
you kept quiet? Why you turn a blind eye? Why you took a bribe behind people back? X, Y, Z. This is what's going on right now in Africa at the whole, which is it's stirring up the pot. You go on TikTok, there's a lot of podcasts where people are talking for hours, talk about which child was responsible for that, which leader was responsible for that, why they didn't do it X, Y, and I'm like, why didn't hear this on YouTube? I got hear it
Yeah.
on TikTok. And
Yeah.
I just did not say not a word, just listen, take note, and I'm like, damn, there's a lot going on that we
Right.
don't know about. And the fact
Yeah.
that Anton mentioned Haiti got their independence, and 64 years later, America did now recognize that. But you forget
Yeah, and
Haiti
just
helped.
look at the state of Haiti right now, because I think he also made comment about, yeah, we wouldn't have been able to win the, I think War of Independence, Revolutionary War, without the Haitians.
And he
So
ignored them for
but
64
look at
years.
the state of the island now. I mean, we've been, um, not necessarily their biggest supporters. I mean, obviously they've had a lot of corruption. I mean, it's just been a bad state of of governance, certainly for sure. I don't know how much of that is intentional and how much of that is um, you know uh, just a string of
I,
bad leaders. But
I would
again, but
say,
we know this country has had a history of having, destabilizers, certainly working through the CIA and other branches of counterintelligence that have led to a lot of the conditions that have taken place.
you may have to have a part two of this history
Oh
conversation
yeah,
because
for sure, for sure. Well, let me just
I
answer.
would go ahead.
Joshua does, again. This is not a call-in show, so again, the format how we decide to do the show. All right, usually 3 or 4 shows within the month is just me and Gray grooming reviews. We're just having a one-on-one conversation, just based on our perspectives. From my perspective as an African American, his as a Greek American. But once a month, we have a call-in show, and you're free to call in at that time, and we can redress or revisit anything that we've talked about in the interim. So again, this show obviously, first of all, salute to the chat tonight, because I know Joshua and Hunting Wisdom and Anton, you guys have been certainly contributing so much tonight. There's a lot of bits on this bone to chew on. And certainly, we would love to have you guys back. We would love to certainly have you guys on the call-in show, where we can talk about these topics, and share your perspectives. So, but that's generally how it goes. We do 3 or 4 shows once a month. We have a call-in. You're free to go to any of the content that we had before, and you can certainly bring it up at that time. In fact, we're already at the end of the show, which I kind of knew what was going to happen again, because history is great, as I guess it is as gray as it can get, right? Out of any topic that we've talked about so far on this show. I know there's going to be like a religion show the next week, but yeah, history is that is not something that is not black and white, for sure. And so we're gonna chop this up. We may certainly in the future do a part two, where we can get into other question topics and whatnot. But yeah, we certainly we invite you guys back. I just use an example. See, you take everything as like so literal, but I'm just saying it's a lot of hands. All right, it's a lot of hands. It's complicated. But
Oh, you gotta give me credit for one thing. I know how to pick the topics.
yes, you do, for sure, for sure.
I would suggest that going forward, every month you should have a history topic based on what region we'll talk about and in depth, because history is not no simple topic can glance through. Because right now, when you talked about the independent and what happened with the change or the torch between the French and other colonies, you
Right.
realize the chat have put in a lot of detailed information to put plugs in what's been missing.
Right.
So I'm thinking going forward, you need to start doing history based on what region have certain guests who can come in,
Yeah, we may have
and
to take this one nation at a time.
may
But
have
again,
one
but it's
between the
tough because
master
as we already
between
said, especially when you're dealing with the superpowers, it's not just
oh
one nation. You know what I mean? Like Vietnam wasn't just the French, or a lot of stuff that was happening in Africa, as you already indicated. There's a lot of hands in that pot, and so you may not be able to limit it without bringing in, especially when you talk about the most influential of nations. You're not necessarily
and
going to be able to get, have that local, because no one, especially in today's climate, no one lives in a bubble. And there's alliances, and there's partnerships that extend way back. Like I said, Vietnam, that goes back to World War II. That goes back to the 40s when that whole thing started, and it just bubbled up and just built and built, and it just spilled over. So yeah. So I hear you, Black David, in terms of trying to have that discussion. It may not go as clean as you want it to be, especially once we know all the players that are involved in these situations. But I hear what you're saying though.
we don't want it to be clean. Just having once every month about this history conversation
only
because
thing I gotta say, but between the history and the martial art ones, we're gonna have a full agenda.
We're gonna have content for the next 2 years of
because
of,
look
of,
I
at
don't
of
think BMU
content.
cares.
Yeah, as long as we can churn it
no,
out. But again, I
he
think
the
this is
history buff,
certainly. Yeah,
What's
but
up?
this is certainly what I'm on the live. We may also have to commit grooming. I know we're also sticklers in terms of time because again, first of all, we recognize that
You know, it's not
everyone's
man.
got
Yeah,
work tomorrow and whatnot, and we're not the
and
guys
work
like I know.
smash.
Yeah, BMU, they were on that Tuesday. Wednesday was that Wednesday show for 8 hours or something like that. We're
No, that
not
was
doing that.
Tuesday. That was
we're
no
not doing
That
Thursday.
was
That was Thursday.
we're not
that.
doing that. All right, I'm not doing 8 hours straight. I don't care how hot
No,
out
because
it is. I'm gonna put the time out. We're gonna cap some stuff, but yeah, but it may
I
be
think I'm
on
gonna
that
jump
show.
on a limb here. I think this is gonna be probably one of our best shows so far with views
Right,
and
right. But I
everything.
think certainly on the call-in show, if these guys come back, I can give another hour, maybe even 2 hours. I can take it to midnight plus for sure if the interest is there. Like I said, but I know this is a lot to chew on for people, and people are very passionate as you saw tonight. People are very passionate with their views on it, coming from their own cultural perspective. I mean, Anton, I think he comes from a Haitian background, so again, he has a different perspective than myself, being an African American, when it comes to these things. And so, everybody's going to have their own perspective to share on the topic. But yes, history, it's complicated. Let's just say that. I think we can
and
all, I think we can all agree on that.
I had to
Um,
have BMU back up here because he's another history buff. And Anton mentioned about
Huh?
the
Really? I
Louisiana.
didn't know that.
yeah, he
Anton
breaks it down. Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff
I
I was
thought
sharing
no,
tonight,
I
we
thought the
talked
only
about
good
on
thing he
prior
was,
shows.
is arguing and doing son of eclipse with his cannibals. He does.
Yeah,
Oh, but the thing that Anton mentioned something about the Louisiana Purchase, the French purchased one part of America, and at the same time, BMU do have a history dated back in Louisiana. So I'm
right.
guessing maybe he could come in and fill some of the gap in that area if you
Yeah,
remember what his grandma or great grandmother would have told him. Because, like I said, history is not no simple topic.
yeah.
No, it's not.
But yeah, but there is one person we may need to get on the show who may be able to explain all of this because he was old enough to see all of it. That's our man,
Our
Art
pain,
Payne.
Chef Our pain.
Art Payne, you go all the way back. So if anybody can give some context to all this, certainly you, my brother.
I have a simple question. Maybe you can answer the poll. Does he go
Oh
all the way
Lord.
back to like the Big Bang and even
I
Eve
don't
all
know
the
if
way
he
back
goes
then?
back that far. He might want to have been one of the first Homo
Amen.
sapiens, one of the first
Oh
Homo
Lord.
sapiens found in Africa. He might be one of the
I think he
original.
discovered fire.
Oh Lord. This is not gonna end.
My man R Payne, be sure to again Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Certainly,
I need to remind his
shout out
ass.
to our guy R Payne. Certainly follow up with the show. I don't know exactly what his show topic's going to be on, but certainly
Uh,
salute it.
so
Do you have
Joshua,
it?
the colon is gonna be in 2 weeks. Let me get the schedule back up here. I have it right here. Give me 1 second because I can tell you a rough boat number when I can kill exactly, but it's a rough.
And for
Do
every history buff, please leave your comment on this show. Please, after the show go off the air, put your comment on the chat. whatever history that you maybe that overlooked, put it there so we can address those history conversations on the next call in.
So the colon is the 12th coming up.
Yeah.
12th
Okay.
of
So May 12th
Yeah.
is going to be our next call-in show. So you can certainly book that, mark that on your calendars, and call back. Just kind of give a heads up on, again, upcoming programming on the BMU network. So again, we talked about my guy, R. Payne. Tomorrow night, it's time to rid men from child support. Focus on box control. So that's going to be his topic. Again, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time. You have Embrace the Grace. See, why does she do this? Grooming, why don't you on your okay on your ASS Mayhem Mondays with Embrace the Grace. She's the newest addition to the BMU network, so she's also going to be on tomorrow night as well. I'm sorry, yeah, actually, it's going to be on the 22nd. We got the Wednesday show is actually so that's going to be probably the turn the table show. I'm not seeing a show for R Payne at this point, but he's usually on, so I'll definitely. Oh yeah,
I see it.
The Anatomy of a Sexless Marriage. Can it be avoided? Is there a way? So that's R Payne show, followed by Embrace the Grace show that she's going to be on certain people. I'll just leave it at
Yeah,
that.
her topic is on your ass. I don't want to know, but
So,
with our pains, his solution to that problem is called chewable.
oh my gosh. Okay. All right. And then, like I said, turning over, flipping the tables Tuesday. It's time to rid men from child support. Focus on boss control. So that just gives you a taste of the upcoming programming. But if you go to the BMU Network channel, you'll click on the live link. You'll see the latest shows that are going to be coming up, as well as go back and look over at the history of past shows. And like I said, BMU, he's created. There's a topic for every day of the week, essentially, and all coming from different perspectives. And we're really, certainly glad to be part of the platform.
Yeah, between BMU channel and the other ones that we all also associated with, like mine and everybody else, we all have something going on. If we're not co-streaming, we're doing something. It's always something for somebody out there. Like
Absolutely.
I have something going on Wednesday, BMU has something on Wednesday. So you can flip both. We can watch both at the same time. Get two monitors. Watch both channels. Watch all 4 channels. All 6 channels. Support us all. Like, yeah, as many
now you might want to in the end if to avoid. And I think do we have a Thursday spot? Is there a Thursday opening CBN?
I'm not too sure. The only Thursday spot for to be mental health, but I remember.
But I know they're taking a break. They're taking a break for some time, so that might open up the slot.
Sure.
That might open up slot grooming. If you might want to move temporarily until they fill that slot again, you might want to consider moving your show to that Thursday slot, so there's no conflict. But that's your call to make. But yeah, there's a lot of content out there, and certainly something for everyone, so to speak. But again, I had fun with this. Like I said, I'm just like you, grooming, fan of history. But I tend to focus on certain periods, especially with American history. But there's so much. So it's this, yeah. So so it's definitely some different slots here, as Black Man saying, that we could possibly capitalize on. But I had fun with this conversation. Again, May 12th call-in show. For all of those who want to continue this conversation, you can definitely call in at that time, and you can continue to chop it up with us. And we may have to do again a part 2, or again as.
But Paul, you realize if I pick up Thursdays and do a co-streaming on both times, it means you have to work 7 days a week now.
Whatever it takes, man. Whatever the grind. Look, whatever the grind is. Yeah, Thursdays. I was enjoying my Thursdays off, but whatever we got to do to grow this
open a can of worms.
Whatever we got to do to grow the network, and Black Man, I'm making myself available in this space. But I'm not getting on any other stream. That is absolutely not. I'm not doing that. But again, had some fun tonight, and hopefully this was something that definitely sparked, as we see in the chat, a lot of convo. And we hope to keep this combo going. But again, I'm Mr. Bennett. He is Grooming and Reviews, a.k.a. the Ghost of Sparta, a.k.a. Peter, a.k.a. Poniotis. This is the gray area, and we couldn't have picked a grayer topic than tonight. We'll see you next week. Until then, take care, and God bless.
Stay chef. fuck.